First of all, that I promise to bless the wine bottles that you bring in honor of St. John, and also the little children may be brought forward to be blessed. This time of Christmas, and their feast day for the Innocents was Saturday. January 1st, New Year's Day, Holy Day of Obligation. So here in San Diego, we'll have the Mass here at 4 p.m. We're here at the Claremont Mortuary at 4 p.m. So I hope that you can make good use of that Holy Day of Obligation Mass. Of course, we've had, as you know, extra Masses with Christmas falling on last Wednesday, now this one. So let's make good use of the Sunday Masses that are being offered here at the mortuary. Also, you may be interested in our December 31st, all the adorations. That would be Christmas. Well, it's not really a Christmas adoration, but certainly a good time to pray with the Christmas spirit, especially as we finish the year 2019 and start the year 2020. Lots to pray and be thankful for, lots to pray for in the new year. And of course, that is New Year's Eve, so it's a good time to pray also, ushering in the new year. It runs pretty much from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. I thought there might have been something else, but I just draw your attention to the letter that we put in the bulletin, which is the one I published up in Arcadia for all of our friends of the parish, all the missions, and for visitors. Then also, it seems as though there was one other thing, but I've forgotten it. If I remember by the end of the sermon, I will let you know. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
As I begin this sermon, let us remember for all the sick of our mission, especially those I just saw this afternoon. Doris and Joseph Farrenball, they're very sickly at home. I would be very surprised if they were still living by Easter. So please keep them in your prayers. Both are failing fast. She with cancer, and himself, Joe, with dementia. Well, it is the time of year, and this Sunday within the octave of Christmas, to remember to pray to the Holy Family. The Holy Family, I know, and you know also, is a very great help and should be a very great help to our souls, because we all have to relate to the familial situation. Fathers, mothers, and children, and all that goes with it. And then speaking about these people who are sick, you can imagine all that's involved and how easy it is to get off track, get too focused on the material things, or even to just start to get each other's throat, or at your neighbors, because there's so many things that we require to be virtuous with. And so you want to ask the Holy Family this time of year to have the strength as a good family, the father, the mother, the children, to have the virtue and the grace necessary to live our lives as good Catholics, as a good Catholic family. It goes a long ways. If it's formed well at young ages, then when we get to the end of our life, when we get to those difficult questions, when we get to those things that are really hard in life, then we stick together. Otherwise, it won't be the case. So, pray for that. Ask for the virtue and that grace. I wish to speak to you and to preach today about St. Thomas Becket. St. Thomas Becket and the good of the Church. St. Thomas of Becket is our champion for the defense of the Church. Holy Mother Church wanted to put around the crib of our Lord a few important saints. We've mentioned them: St. Stephen, St. John, the Holy Innocents, and Thomas Becket, Thomas of Canterbury. She wanted to circle his little throne, his crib, with those particular persons for different reasons. Each one of them is very important. St. Stephen is the martyr in action and desire. St. John is the martyr in desire, but no action. Not that he didn't do anything, but he didn't die in blood, but he suffered severely in his soul, a spiritual martyrdom. And then the holy innocents, all action and no desire. They died for our Lord Jesus Christ because he wanted them as his little lambs. I don't know which one we will find ourselves to be someday, but at least we have somebody to relate to. And then you have Thomas Becket. And why he's around the crib of our Lord is because he defends the liberty of the church, the spouse of Christ, the mystical body. And it's very important for us to know his bio, so I plan to read that to you today. We don't often hear his story. We may not even know who he is. Thomas was born in England in the city of London, and he succeeded Theobald as Bishop of Canterbury. He had previously acquitted himself with much honor as Chancellor and was strenuous and unflinching in his duty as bishop. For when Henry II, King of England, and an assembly of the bishops and nobles of the realm passed certain laws inconsistent with the interests and the honor of the church, the bishop withstood the king's avarice so courageously that neither fair promises nor threats could draw him over to the king's side. And being in danger of imprisonment, he privately withdrew. Not long after, all his relatives, young and old, all his friends and household were banished, and such of them as had attained the age of discretion were made to promise an oath that they would go to Thomas, as perhaps he who could not be made to swerve from his holy purpose by any personal consideration might relent at the heart-rending spectacle of the sufferings of them who were dear to him. But he regarded not the demands of flesh and blood, neither did he permit the feelings of natural affection to weaken the firmness required of him as bishop. He therefore repaired to Pope Alexander III, from whom he met with a kind reception, and who commanded him on his departure to the Cistercian monks of Pontigny. As soon as Henry came to know this, he strove to have Thomas expelled from Pontigny, and for this purpose sent threatening letters to the general chapter of Cîteaux. Whereupon the holy man, fearing lest the Cistercian order should be made to suffer on his account, left the monastery of his own accord, and betook himself to the hospitable shelter to which he had been invited by Louis, King of France. And there he remained until, by the intervention of the Pope and Louis the King, he was called home from his banishment to the joy of the whole kingdom. And whilst resuming the intrepid discharge of duty of a good shepherd, certain calumniators denounced him to King Henry as one that was plotting sundry things against the country and the public peace. Wherefore, the king was heard frequently complaining that there was only one priest in the kingdom, the kingdom could not be in peace. Certain wicked satellites concluded from this expression of the king that he would be pleased at the ridding him of Thomas. Accordingly, they stealthily entered Canterbury, and finding the bishop was in the church officiating at vespers, they began their attack. The clergy were using means to prevent them from entering the church. When the saint, coming to them, forbade their opposition, and opening the door, thus spoke to them: "The church is not to be guarded like a citadel. I am glad to die for God's church." Then turning to the soldiers, he said, "I command you in the name of God that you hurt not any of them that are with me." And after this he knelt down and commended his church and himself to God, to the Blessed Mary, to Saint Denis, and to the other patron saints of his cathedral. With the same courage he had shown in resisting the king's inexorable laws, he bowed down his head to the impious murderers on the 4th of the calends of January, December 29th, in the year of our Lord, 1171. His brains were scattered on the floor of the entire church. God having shown the holiness of his servant by many miracles, he was canonized by the same Pope, Alexander III. A champion for us, dear faithful, something we must not forget in this day and age when the church seems to be losing her rights quite quickly. It's not by accident or just by coincidence, it's by design. This has been going on for a long time. Many, even a Catholic king like Henry II, has tried to encroach on the rights of the church, only to sometimes be pushed back by a strong bishop like Thomas of Canterbury. Woe is us that we don't have such strong bishops in great abundance today, nor clerics or priests who can do that. Very few. We hear about them, it's so important, and it becomes such an issue that we hear about in the news. Well, every bishop should be doing that. So, what's happened? Well, I would really like to draw your attention to the book of Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre called They Have Uncrowned Him. They have uncrowned him. And he speaks about all of these rights of the church and the rights of Christ the King. And he shows that this has been something that's been fomenting for many years, but also then after Vatican II, there were even clerics and bishops who were going around discouraging the concordats and the working together of the secular state with the church, encouraging more and more separation. It's true in this country, the United States, we have a separation of church and state. We do. It's not ideal. It's not the idea of the church, but it has worked providentially for our good. So we take it as it is. But it's not the mind of the church, separation of church and state. It wasn't her mind to have a secular state over there and then detached from a religious body. No. Because what is the purpose of the state? What is the purpose of material things around us? To make it possible for us to work with God. The purpose of all these things, the purpose of an order, a culture, is to hold the people stable, prosperous, in order that they may honor God. It is something the Jesuits realized quite quickly in the way they approached evangelizing the natives, the peoples of different countries. They would go in and establish them, teach them how to work the land, be stable, stop roaming around like savages, and stay stable and learn the faith. So they would then be established and then learn the faith. We see this all in the missions up and down California's coast. It's also the case in other countries. That idea has always been the idea of the church. Use the material things to keep people stable so that they can learn about God. They can raise up through the supernatural, through His grace. So, that being the case, what do we see today in today's society? We see a lot of terrible things that the bishops and the clergy have done, criminal things, perverse things. And so what that automatically makes happen, and this is by design, is a lack of trust in the church. Where before it was about her rights and her properties, way back with Pope Pius IX. And then it became a few other little things. Concordats are being dropped, more and more secularization of the states, less influence of the church over these last 50 years. And now we get to this point in the last 20 years, lack of trust. Oh, those clergy, oh yes, look, they can't be trusted. They do these big things, those bad things. It's not the mind of God, it's the mind of the church. And there's certain rights the church owns, and she has inalienably, that regardless of myself as a priest, regardless of the bishops, who they are, they'll die. But the good of the church must always remain. The rights of the church must always remain. And unfortunately, what we see today, because of all the scandals in the church, you see the state going in and saying, we want your secret archives. Secret archives. Dear faithful, I hope you know what that means. I keep secret archives and files on souls. Confidential. Things that are just this close to this confession. Why would I want everybody looking at them? That's between them and God. The reason they came to me in the first place is because the church has laws. She has ways of trying to fix whatever damaged souls come to us. And then what's the purpose of that? Again, the same idea. You do what you can to stabilize that bleeding out, this lack of belief or whatever it is, and then you say, okay, that's stable, now go to God. Convert. Save your soul. We do that with marriages. We do it with all kinds of problems. What's the purpose of that? The church tries to clean up, swab out the wounds so that the person can save their soul. Not the files and the details of their past life can be spread around everybody. But unfortunately, bishops and priests have harbored criminals. And now what does the state think it can do? What recourses it have? It's wrong to go in and just spread the files of the secrets of the church around. But it's also in a catch-22. The bishops aren't doing their job in turning over the criminals to the state. The church used to take care of its own tribunals, and it has the power to actually convict criminals. But when it comes to actual punishment, prison, or execution, then that has to be turned over to the state. Which, not much of that nowadays. So, there's a delicate balance to keep, and I want to bring this up to you on this feast of St. Thomas Becket. He was so protective of the rights of the church. We must not lose them. We must not become a sort of in this mindset where the church is just another organization in society, like another business or group of guys. No. This is the mystical body of Christ. So we must protect the spirit, and we must protect the heart of the church. But at the same time, we recognize that there's something that the bishops and clergy haven't been doing, and they've been covering up. So I want you to keep this right thinking, because it's not right, the secular approach, nor, may I say, the modern church approach. Something has to be done differently. And it's really the spirit of St. Thomas Becket, the liberty of the church. Why does the church have liberty? Why does she always push for it? Why did he stand up against Henry II? Because the church must always be free to teach the faith. Must always be able to govern what's necessary for her to teach the faith. That's why, in a way, when the Vatican lost many of its properties, because the Vatican had a lot of properties back at the time of Pius IX, when it lost all these papal states, that wasn't necessary to preach the faith. Let it go. It's not nice because it belongs to the church and they stole it. But it's not necessary to preach the faith. It's not harming souls like today. How many things are harming souls, and they should have been corrected a long time ago? Let us pray for them. Let us pray to St. Thomas Becket that we keep the proper freedom and liberty of the church. Because you can fast see the secular mind, it doesn't know anything about liberties of the church, will just crush it. And I can see so fast as possible that the clergy could be persecuted beyond what they deserve for sin or for crimes. A real persecution because of the rights being lost to actually exercise themselves as pastors. To exercise their power. Power is a delicate thing, isn't it? The bishops and priests are meant to be powerful. I hope you see that in the priests. But it's such a delicate thing. You can misuse it, you can abuse it. But it's meant to take and put our Lord Jesus Christ in the sight of these souls and in their hearts. But if you don't do that with it, you become a bad man. The same in the state, same always. If you misuse the power given by God and His authority, you become a bad man. Well, I now draw your attention and stop. And don't forget, always come to the crib. Pray to our Lord Jesus Christ. Pray to the Holy Family. We need their help. I told you that at the beginning for many, many things. But in this crisis in the church, and in this time of the year, we need to stay close to our Lord in the crib. So pray to Him, pray to St. Joseph, pray to Our Lady. You are our guides in this valley of tears. In the name of the Father,